I still don't have an intro because like I'm not really a YouTuber. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the death of Paulette Gebara. So this was a really big case in Mexico because the family was a very wealthy family, and when you are a wealthy family and your child goes missing, you make sure that there's a lot of media coverage, you know what I'm saying? So the family was from Mexico. I can't say it, so I'm just gonna write the town, the place, the city that they lived in somewhere on the screen. So Paulette, she was 4 years old at the time that she died. Paulette had a lot of developmental abilities. Like, she couldn't really speak very well. Like, she could say words, but she couldn't really string them together and form sentences. She had difficulty walking places on her own, using the bathroom, you know, things like that. However, despite these disabilities, Paulette went to a regular school. So one weekend, the family went away. She went away with her father and her older sister that was 7 years old. So that is a 3-year age difference. And her mother went away to meet a friend. Later, you find out that she was actually gonna go see her lover. So Paulette's mother was having an affair with another person during the time that Paulette died. So after the weekend was over, everybody was back home Sunday, March 21st, 2010. That night, the whole family was tired, so Paulette was put to bed by her mother, and her mother was essentially the last person to see Paulette alive. The next day, the nannies Erica and Martha got her older sister ready for school, and they took her down to the school bus. Now, around 8 a.m., they went to go get Paulette ready for kindergarten, but Paulette was missing. She wasn't in her bed, so the nannies immediately start searching for her everywhere. They look, maybe she wandered off, even though that is very unlikely because Paulette had difficulties walking by herself. So obviously the next thing the nannies did after they could not find Paulette was call Paulette's parents. Something the nannies say that they noticed is that none of the parents looked bothered at all to search for her. It's like they didn't even care. Like, usually, like, I know, for example, if my little sister went missing, my parents would become frantic just looking for her everywhere, and Paulette's parents were actually the complete opposite. So that's when they decided to get the police involved. There was no sign of forced entry or a sign of a struggle, meaning that the person that could have possibly taken Paulette they had access to the house. So like I previously mentioned in the beginning of this video, they were a wealthy family. So what Paulette's parents did, Lisette and Mauricio, was they went to the media to get attention for their daughter. Soon after, Paulette was pretty much everywhere. She was on billboards, newspapers, like everywhere. Everybody was talking about the missing girl, Paulette. So what happened next was truly shocking because despite forensics and police searching the entire house, the neighborhood, the area, setting out all these alerts for Paulette, a couple days later, Paulette was found at the foot of her bed. She was found dead on March 30th, 2010, which is 9 days after they came home. Forensics said that there was no way that Paulette could have been at the foot of her bed for more than 3 days without there being some kind of odor. So what they're trying to say is that if Paulette had been at the foot of her bed that whole time, they would have found her, definitely found her. Not just through the forensics, but someone would have noticed within the first 3 days that she was in there. They even had the nannies like remake the bed because during the time of Paulette's disappearance, the nannies went into the room and they made the bed. So how do you not find a body that was at the foot of the bed if you went and you made the bed? I don't understand that. But when forensics and police made the nannies remake the bed, the forensics team decided that it was actually possible for them to make the bed and not see the body. During one interview, Paulette's mom, Lisette, said, Even if I lose Paulette, I still have another daughter. I find that totally ridiculous because yes, you do have another daughter, and it's important to recognize that because a lot of parents, when a child dies, they oftentimes forget their other child or neglect them because they're so caught up in their grief. But in this moment, you don't know if your child is dead or alive, and you're saying, well, I have another child. Like, that's so messed up. Erica, which was one of the nannies, she said, after looking everywhere for Paulette, I found her mother sitting there drinking coffee and smoking, all while her father was calmly looking in the closet for the girl. Like, in the closet, like, acting like the nannies haven't looked, and they're not even panicking. The mom wasn't even making an effort to look, and her father was making an effort, but, like, was he really? So now on to the suspects. So the main suspect in this case was actually Paulette's mom, Lisette. So many people in Mexico believe that she was guilty because of the things she said during the interview, that she has another daughter, and just because of her state when her daughter went missing, she was not panicking. So a theory is that maybe she killed Paulette herself because the disability was too much for her to handle. Like, having a handicapable kid, it's a very tough job for the parents. Paulette essentially would have never really been independent, so parents can see that as a burden. So maybe she felt like Paulette was a burden and decided to kill her. She had no empathy, like previously mentioned a dozen times. Another theory, which I believe more than just that Lisette acted alone, was that both parents had an active role in the disappearance and the murder of Paulette. During the time where Paulette went missing, both parents were having financial issues. With their daughter missing, they agreed to do many interviews. Now, in case you didn't know, you get paid to do interviews on TV. You have to get paid to go on the show. That could have easily solved their financial problems. So what if they just hid away their daughter and said, hey, like, let's do interviews, like, we can profit from her disappearance. That can explain why they weren't panicking. They knew exactly where she was. And then after they made their money, they'd get Paulette to come back somehow. It's like, oh, we found her. And then guess what? You're gonna get even more interviews where they're gonna want you, your spouse, and your newly found daughter to all come on the show and show the world, oh, now we're this happy family that's been reunited. So then they profit even more from that. It was like a win-win situation because Paulette didn't have to get harmed and they made the money. But you're probably thinking, if that's what happened, then why was Paulette found dead? Well, the theory goes that maybe they hid her in an air duct or an air vent, or maybe like an elevator shaft, and they told her, like, here, like, wait, we'll come back for you. And then since Paulette couldn't really speak, couldn't really walk, she couldn't get out, and she could have possibly suffocated in the vent. Because when they did the autopsy, that's what they found, that the cause of death was suffocation. And going back to their financial problems, Paulette's grandparents were very wealthy, like wealthier than Paulette's actual parents. So if there was somehow a ransom per se that they had to pay this kidnapper, they'd probably get Paulette's grandparents to pitch in, and they keep the money because obviously there is no kidnapper. And again, Paulette comes back safe, everybody's happy. But then after it went wrong, let's say they did go back to that vent and they found Paulette dead, they're like, what do we do now? They don't really know what to do with themselves, so there's like, okay, let's act like it was just a big slip up and put her back in her room. But if a dead body just shows up lying down on a bed, like, that's a little weird. So again, they probably panicked and just put her at the foot of the bed, like tucked into the foot of the bed. So the last theory was that Paulette's older sister actually murdered her. It was known that Lisette, the mother of these two girls, was having an affair, and Mauricio, the husband, actually was well aware that Lisette was having an affair. So the theory goes that one night they were arguing, yelling at each other, maybe because of financial problems, marital problems. At this point, it could be any problems. And Paulette was crying because obviously she's a 4-year-old girl and she hears her parents yelling in the living room or possibly in the same room. And she's crying and crying. And then her sister tried to shut her up and killed her by maybe putting a pillow over her head because the cause of death was suffocation. If you think about it, this theory is not that far-fetched because Paulette was a child with many disabilities who needed nannies, round-the-clock care. Their parents probably gave Paulette a lot more attention than they gave her. So what if she was driven by jealousy and she had this pent-up anger towards her sister because she was the only child for a good 2 years, and then now she had to not only adjust to this baby coming into this family, she had to adjust to a baby with disabilities. And I mean, Paulette does deserve that attention. Paulette does need that care. It's not like the parents just gave it to her because it's like, oh, we're gonna neglect you. You know, Paulette needed that. But sibling jealousy is very common in families, even with kids who don't have disabilities. So, like I said, what if she just, like, shut up, like, you're so annoying, and then just grabbed a pillow and suffocated her? She probably did it unintentionally. She was 7 years old at the time. I don't think she really understood that, you know, covering your sister's face with a pillow is gonna kill her. But then the parents probably saw what she had done, and obviously that is also their daughter. So as much as it hurt them, I mean, have you ever watched Pretty Little Liars? Like, Mrs. De Laurentiis was willing to cover for one of her children, even though she thought one of her children killed her other child. Like,
what have you done? What have you done?
I swear I thought it was Bethany. I swear I didn't know it was Allie, Mom. You're gonna forgive me, Mom. Please, you gotta forgive me, though. Look at me. She wouldn't even look at me.
it's just, yeah, so both parents, again, were probably involved in covering it up, but as far as who killed her, there's also that possibility that it was her sister. Now you're probably thinking, what about the nannies? The nannies had easy access to this house at all times. They were trusted with the family. But if you think about it, it's not very logical that the nannies were suspects and the police themselves took them off of the suspect list, because the mother was the last person to see Paulette, and they hadn't been in the room until 8 a.m. when they were supposed to get Paulette ready for school. They were preoccupied with the older sibling. So there's no way that they could have carried out the murder, hid the body, and managed to get the other sibling ready for school and then walk into the room. And if anything, they seem way more concerned than their parents. I don't think they'd be frantically searching for a child that they know they killed. But yeah, that's all the facts for the case. Do you think the sister did it? I mean, she was just 7 years old. But then again, Paulette was 4. She could have easily had the upper hand. Do you think it was the mom who just got tired of caring for this kid with disabilities and just wasn't happy with her life? I mean, she was having an affair. She clearly wasn't in a good marriage. She went away for the weekend and she didn't go with her family. Like, that shows that there's that disconnect. She just didn't like her life anymore. Do you think it was both parents who were just looking for money and then covered it up after it went wrong? Or do you think that despite police's judgment that it actually was the nanny who did have total access to the girls at any time? Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, bye guys.
Again, I'll never love you